Welcome back to this series on the solutions on our assignments in the course Competition Policy and Strategy. In this video we are going to talk through the solutions to exercise 7.3 which is on the topic of a horizontal merger in a differentiated Bertrand model. And as it is indicated by this Roman number 2, this is the second more or less consecutive exercise on this model. So I would strongly recommend going back to the previous video on exercise 7.2 in case you have not yet watched it, simply because this is more or less an extension of the model we were already discussing in the previous exercise. Okay, so as it's written on the slide, we are asked to continue with the task from 7.2, right? It's basically the same model, it's just extended. In the sense that now there is another company that enters the market offering a third variety of the good fruit juice. In this case we call this firm C for citro juice, which is a supplier of citrus fruit juice, so always nice to have indices A, B and C, of course. And we know that the demand function for this good C is basically the exact same as it is for all the other goods, right? So we simply extend the demand functions from the previous exercise for one additional good. So let's just go through one of these just for an example. Let's consider this demand for good C. So the demand for good C now is a function of the price of good A, of the price of good B and the price of good C, right? And what we can see when we are looking at the demand function itself, well, we see that of course the demand for good C is decreasing in price for good C, and at the same time the demand for good C is increasing in the price for the other two goods. So what we know in this exercise, just by looking at the demand functions, is that these goods are substitutes of some kind for one another. Yeah. So the price, if one of the firms, let's say firm A, decides to decrease their price, that would result in a decrease in the demanded quantity for the good of any other producer. All right. So in this sense, this is still the same behaving model as it was in the previous exercise. Furthermore, we will assume, or will continue to assume, that all firms in the market are symmetric. So not only are all firms facing the same demand function, just with interchanged indices, as you can read here, but in addition, we also say that all firms have the same constant marginal costs of 2. There is no fixed cost in production, furthermore, and we can now assume that all three firms in competition will set a price equal to 5, just as a starting point. Because what we are now interested in is not really the baseline in the sense, let's have a look at the competition situation at first, because it would be the exact same logic for solving this problem that it already was in the previous exercise 7.2, but instead we want to continue from this point. And we want to continue from this point more specifically by considering a situation in which two firms, firm A and firm B, merge, but firm C continues to compete with these firms. And now in this first step, we want to restrict the behavior of C to make it a little bit easier and to provide for a comparison point. We want to assume that firm C continues to set a price of 5, which, as a reminder, was the price under competition between all three firms, right? So firm A and firm B merge, firm C continues to set, they basically stick to the price under competition, and then we want to analyze now what the price is that this newly formed firm, the firm after merger A and B, will set in response to firm C's price. All right, so in this world post-merger between A and B, we have the profit function of firm A and B that is written as it is written on this slide. And I'm not going to read it out simply because it is following the same logic the same logic as the profit function on the previous exercise 7.2, where we find the profit function of the merged firm simply by adding up the individual profit functions of the merging firms, right? So what we have here in the profit function is simply profit, or pi A plus pi B. Right, so this then results if we add up these two profit functions of firm A and firm B into one combined profit function for firm A and B. If we want to find out the price that the newly formed firm will set, what we're of course looking for is the new market equilibrium. So what we're looking for is the best response of this firm. Or in other words, what we're looking for is the profit maximizing choice of prices of this firm A and B. Firm A and B can of course choose price A and price B, PA and PB. And by choosing these prices, this firm A and B will maximize their profit. So mathematically what we need to do is we need to calculate the derivative of this profit function of firm A and B, pi A and B, with respect to first price A and second with respect to price B, which yields two first order conditions for the maximum. All right. Now in this first step, of course, we are not truly looking for market equilibrium in the sense that we assumed that firm C will not actually play or choose their profit maximizing price. Firm C, by assumption, is not choosing their best response. Instead, we assumed that firm C is choosing PC equal 5. So if you want to find out what the market price in this situation will be, well, we now know the best responses of firm A and B with respect to any price PC. So we can simply substitute the price PC we assume in the exercise into these best responses and then solve this equation system in which only two parameters will be left, namely PA and PB. So again, similar to what we saw earlier, we are then left with an equation system which consists two equations, two first order conditions, and two parameters, PA and PB. We can then solve this and find out, as it is written down here, solving the equation system then provides that the market price in this situation, the price that will result given a profit maximizing behavior of firm A and B and a sticky pricing behavior of firm C, that the prices that will result under these conditions will be PA star equal PB star equal to 43/8 or as a decimal 5.375. All right. Now, of course, simply assuming firm C would choose some irrational price that does not even maximize their profits is kind of feels kind of cheating and is not really what we're usually interested in. Instead, of course, we are looking at or are interested in what happens or what is actually the best response of firm C as well. So what is the market equilibrium? What is the prices that result if all players play their profit maximizing strategies? Right? And even more interestingly, of course, what we want to know is how does the merger of two firms in this differentiated Bertrand model affect the price of the not participating firm, firm C? So let's go there step by step. Of course, we are now assumed that firm C also sets its price optimally, right? So we now we are now talking about profit maximizing, or playing their best response, of course. We are then asked to determine the equilibrium prices Pj, where J can take values A and B, and Pc. Of course, this might be a little confusing at first, because but point being, we can already anticipate that price A and price B will be exactly the same, right? Because they are part of the same monopolistic firm. But that's just an aside. We are looking for prices PA, PB, and PC in equilibrium, so they're all marked with a star in this notation. Firm A and B continues to choose prices A and B, profit maximizing, so exactly the same that we just did. And now firm C also maximizes their profits instead of simply sticking with their former equilibrium under competition price of 5. We are now looking for an actual equilibrium price. So this upper part of the slide, the first order condition for firm A and B, of course, is the exact same that we already did in task A. Right? Just remember, in task A, we were already considering a profit maximizing firm A and B that was choosing price A and price B, profit maximizing. So, so what is written down here, the first order conditions for the profit maximum of firm A and B, is exactly the same and not changed at all. The different part, or the additional part that is provided by this task specifically, is the lower part of the slide, right? Because this now yields from this additional assumption that firm C also sets their price additionally. And if we no longer assume some pricing for C, some fixed pricing for C, but rather want to look for the equilibrium price, or in other words, of course, the best response of firm C, what we need to do is state the profit function of firm C and find the maximum of this profit function by choosing firm C's strategic variable, price C, profit maximizing. And that's exactly what we are doing here. So we state the profit function of firm C and then find the profit maximum by calculating the first order condition for the profit maximum. So the derivative of pi C with respect to PC. Okay, so now we are then, at this point, we are then faced with an equation system consisting 3 equations and 3 parameters. And honestly, we don't care how you want to solve this, but you can solve it. You can, for example, substitute, or you can, for example, solve one first order condition for one price and then substitute into the other. And if you continue solving this equation system, you will find out that the prices PA and PB equal 70/13, or as a decimal 5.385. And finally, you will calculate that the equilibrium price of firm C equals 66/13, or as a decimal 5.077. So that is then the market equilibrium prices for all firms if they behave profit maximizing. Just one hint, because I forgot to mention at the appropriate time or appropriate moment when I was talking about solving this linear equation system, we can of course make use of this fact that prices A and price B will be exactly the same, right? Just as a hint, which will probably make solving the equation system a whole lot easier. All right. Now in task C, we are asked to provide some interpretations and some economic intuition. So we're asked to interpret the results of tasks of the task parts A and B in comparison to the competitive situation without merger. which was of course given in the exercise, and in which the prices of all firms were equal to 5. In particular, we are asked to consider the behavior of firm A when moving from the situation under A towards the situation under B. And then finally, we are asked to assess whether a competition authority would allow the merger. All right. So first, what did we see in task A? In task A, we saw, in task A, firm A and B merged into one firm. And what we noticed is that in the profit maximization, firms A and B now take into consideration that customers switch to competitors in case they increase their own price. Okay, so what we then notice is that through this merger, simply because there now is only 2 firms and thereby less competition in the market, we see increasing prices after the merger, and thereby, because we have these declining demand functions, by increasing prices we imply decreasing quantities. When moving from task A to task B, so just as a reminder, by allowing firm C to choose their price profit maximizing instead of assuming that they just stick with the previous price they set under competition. Well, when going from A to B, we can then see that recognize that C can increase its price under the umbrella effect of firm A and B, or under the umbrella of firm A and B. And this is called the umbrella effect. So there is, just to lose a few more words on the umbrella effect, what we mean by this is, in a situation like this, where there is a merger happening in the market, which allows firms, the merging firms, to increase their price because they are now have a stronger market position, they gain in market power through the merger. So these merging firms can now set a higher price, and the umbrella effect then refers to the fact that under these conditions, a non-participating firm, in our case firm C, can also increase their price under the umbrella of the merging firms, so to speak. So we see not only increasing prices and decreasing quantities for the merging firms, but instead we see price increase and quantity decreases for the non-participating firm C as well. Now the evaluation, or now towards the evaluation, so in the sense, would a competition authority allow the merger? So what we overall saw is the merger results in higher prices. Higher prices for A, B and C, that is. And the merger does not result in any cost reduction. That of course is exogenous in our model, right? That's not anything that comes out of the model, this missing cost reduction, but rather we assume that they will stay the same, right? So that's a matter of assumption at this point. But right, given the situation we were looking at, we will have to state that prices increased while cost did not decrease. So in this scenario specifically, prohibiting the merger would be advisable. Now, usually we would like to either, of course, refer to the total welfare standard or refer to the consumer welfare standard, both of which, however, rely on a calculation of consumer surplus. And now if you think about how you would calculate consumer surplus in this situation, well, it's not that easy in a differentiated Bertrand, simply because we don't have a prohibitive pricing in this scenario, right? Just by looking at the demand functions, you will realize that the prohibitive price of one good depends on the price of all other goods, right? And that's what you saw. Let me just get back to the demand functions. prohibitive price, so the price PC for which the demand QC reaches a value of 0, well, that of course depends on the prices A and B, right? We cannot make any statement without fixing price A and B on the prohibitive price of good C. So we cannot calculate, that's the bottom line, we cannot calculate consumer surplus in the usual way. So relying on total welfare standard as well as consumer welfare standard, of course, is not an option in this case. However, this exercise is luckily making the world terribly easy, and it is sufficient to realize that prices increase and costs do not decrease at all. So we really, it's easy to argue that in this case, the prohibition of this merger would be advisable.